We're going to open up county facilities meeting, and
We're not permanent yet, so put them on.
we'll ask for a motion to approve the minutes of the last meeting.
Yeah.
We have a motion to approve, Matt, seconded by John. Any discussion or changes, deletions, corrections? Hearing none, call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. We'll start with buildings and grounds, Frank?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have, under action items, there's 2 leases that are up for renewal this year, and we're in budget process, so we'd like to kind of get a jump on them so that we can budget for them. The first one is D&G Recycling down at the Lower Warren Street property, and then the second one is the Cornell Cooperative Extension lease. I'm mainly looking for, I guess, as long as no dollar amounts are going to change, that's our main concern.
I think this one starts earlier, though.
Supervisor Montesi?
This is a $4,000 a month rent that we get for that building, which is pretty reasonable. And I guess the question is, Frank, how long is it? Another 2-year lease?
I believe the original lease was a 3-year, and then it could be renewed, I believe, up to 2 years.
So whatever we come to today, I mean, the question in my mind is, do we want to go with $4,000 a month? Do we want to extend it to 2 years, or do we want to take the building over for whatever uses we might have? That's the only questions I have.
Any other discussions, or anybody else have input on it? Jeff?
I just want to note, I do believe the lease expires before the end of this year. I think we entered into it in the fall, and so I think there might be a change. We'll have to update the resolution request. I think this was a nearer term one where it's expiring sooner than the end of the year.
John?
It looks like it's almost a 3-year lease, right? From December 1st, 2017.
I think we're starting before that date, though. That's what I think. That's an error on the request. I think unless you have a copy. You have a copy?
I don't
Or
have
did
it
you
here,
look at
but
it?
I took it off the
So
lease.
the rent they pay is $4,000 a month, and it will stay $4,000 a month? Is that what we're proposing? 'Cause
That's what it looks like, 48,000.
Yes.
All right.
How about the back pay that they owned? Does anybody know where they're at? Have they made themselves flush with that? They got behind at one time, and Jeff?
I know the treasurer's office has been tracking that, and they've reported that they are paying the additional. I don't believe they're all paid up, but they have been consistently paying the additional $1,000 a month ever since that arrangement we come to that some time ago.
Just as far as the committee's concerned, they were in arrears. Do you remember the amount at all, Jeff?
It was about 23 or 24,000 total.
And is the committee wishes, to move forward with someone that's in arrears, or do we want that brought up to date before we sign a new lease? Doug?
I think it's just common sense. We should have it brought up to date before we go into a new lease. I mean, that's just a common sense decision to make.
You want it, Matt?
I would agree with that, as long as, I don't know what discussions the treasurer and what agreement they made with him. I mean, if he's followed the rules up to this point, I think it would be unfair to change the rules and throw him out of the lease,
Would you like to table it, have the treasurer's input, a little more input on it, and decide next year? And we have a second by Matt. Any discussion on there's no on the tabling? Frank?
I would just add that there has been expression by D&G to purchase the building. I don't know if anybody wants to entertain that or not, but...
The Perkins wanted to buy the building, and they were paying $8,000 a month, and we went through a litany of things with that. My personal opinion. Ron?
I think I did ask the county attorney just to check that, because at one point, I think Paul Dusick said that we could not sell it for the reason of the contingent liability that may be associated with the Ciba-Geigy site. So, it's a good question to table this and get that information.
Yeah. In my tenure, when Dusick was the county attorney and then Martin Afferdew, both of them recommended against the sale of it because of the contingencies that are associated the contamination, et cetera, so that we should hold on to it.
So,
Oh.
you know, you might as well take that off the table then and just say, you know, do we want to lease again to a guy that was in default? And actually, wasn't a very neat guy. I mean, as you go down there and look, we've put some pressure on him to clean things up, but it's not a very wholesome sight to look at what's
And
going on.
maybe that should be part of, you know, some of the diligence that we do. I know you've been great about checking out the courts, et cetera, but could you take a ride down and inspect and see where they're at as far as...
Matt and I will do that.
And then we'll have that to discuss also. So we have a motion on the floor and second to table. All those in favor of tabling?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. So we have a second lease.
The Cornell Cooperative Extension, it's not up till the end of the year. I guess I'm mainly looking to see, I know at one time we went from $30,000 a year to $15,000 a year, and then as of now, we're back up to $30,000 a year.
Yeah, I think there was some issues that we were going to try to take care of, which we did. And the very bad cold winter, they experienced some extreme costing with the electric heat. Since then, they've rectified some of that, so I think 30 is fine. Is Doctor still here? Doc, you have anything to say on the lease and the 30,000?
No, as you say, we made an amendment that 1 year, but the 30,000 is what we're paying, so.
We done relatively well with the contract we signed, with the energy amount that we pay for electricity.
Yes.
That's made a significant difference, I think.
Yes, constellation.
Okay. Could we get a motion on the floor to Matt, a second by the other Matt? Any discussion on the Cornell lease for $30,000 a year? Hearing none, call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved.
Under referrals, I was asked to get a price on updating our asbestos report from Clark Patterson, and the last page of your agenda has their proposal. This is not changing any of the scope that they proposed back in 2008. This would just be updating all the pricing and going forward from that point. They are going to look at two options, demolition and then abatement as it is standing there. So,
Okay, any questions on this?
I think it's the right step forward. We said this could be a one-and-done thing for this year, and I think it's the right way to go. I think the price, Frank, 5 or 6 years ago was $80,000 just to reduce the abatement of the, so just so everybody has a feel of where we're going.
Am I understanding this is correct? It's the $4,000.
$4,000 would be to restudy the project. And
Okay. And we need a motion for approval of this. Motion by John, seconded by Matt. Any other discussion?
Where are we going to pay?
do it on my contract.
Yeah, so I think we'll start right now. I think we're in okay shape with Frank's budget under contracts, his 470 budget, so we'll advance it out of there.
Okay.
The
All right.
4,000.
Rachel?
4,000, yeah.
Mr. Chairman, can you just explain to me why, and I'm just unfamiliar, I know that oftentimes we come to the table and we talk about Clark Patterson, but why do we have to use them? Couldn't we ask for other people to give us a... Well,
Yep.
I mean, I'm just asking
Yep.
for a point of reference.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Well, in this instance, we're asking Clark Patterson to update a study that they conducted. I think if we want a separate consultant to update another consultant's study, I think there's going to be some obvious concerns that they would be taking on liability for another firm's work. So I think in this instance, we're simply asking them to update the costs for their original study that they conducted back in 2008.
That makes sense? You're not satisfied with that?
I guess I don't know enough about it. I just would think that, I understand this is a 2008 study. I don't know what it would cost for us to go out and not update theirs, but do a new study, or why this isn't, and I'm reaching here, but why it isn't something we can do internally. You know, we've talked about wanting to clean this up for a long time, and
Hey, Jeff, why
Just
can't we
asking.
do it internally?
The the engineering involved here is specific to abatement designers, and I don't have any abatement designers in-house, so I think this would be like me estimating work, you know, that is stuff that we just don't have engineers with experience of. I wouldn't trust our estimates on work that is stuff that we don't have expertise in. So Clark Patterson brings to the table not only the architects, but also the abatement designers. There's other information they have available to them and knowledge on this type of work. So,
Claudia?
Thanks. I mean, I'm concerned too that we aren't going out to find maybe some other people that would be qualified to do this estimate work for us. Maybe there's some efficiencies in having them follow up with their own study. The other comment I want to ask about is option one of the new alternatives. Where did that come from? Is that really something we're considering? Demoing the whole jail site and just like...
Well, Ron, do you want to handle that, the discussions that we've had on and where we're going with that?
In terms of what, the old jail? Well, first of all, the answer with Clark Patterson, they're also the consultant that is being our clerk of the works, if you will, for the courthouse. So they're actually on campus, and if it's $4,000 that they're asking for to do this update, not only the abatement but also the demolition, that's a factor. I mean, I'm comfortable with that, but rather than going out for an RFP on a whole new consultant. With regards to the jail, there were options that, you know, we looked at, you know, well, can we use that building for storage, for record storage? Well, you got to get rid of all of the steel inside, and there is asbestos. So whatever we want to do with that jail, whatever cockamamie plans we can come up with, you can't do anything until you get rid of the asbestos. So that's where we're starting, that's why we're starting. Now, the other thing that you can throw into it is to say, well, even if you get rid of the asbestos, the height of the floors is only, ceiling is only 8 feet. So there's not a lot that you can do in there in terms of air conditioning, ducting, and etc. So I think this is the right step, it's the right time to do it, and we do have some dollars that we have in reserve, if you will, that we can use to spend on this.
Frank, do you want to talk about?
Well, I would just add that at the last committee meeting, we talked about demolition as an alternative, because if we abate the jail as it stands, all of the windows have to come out. Because part of the abatement is the caulk around the windows. So we would have to make, we would have to seal them up somehow if we're going to leave it standing. So there is a difference in, there's a difference in the way it has to be abated if you take it down than if you leave it standing. And then the only other thing I would add is that this work is coming out of a contract that we have with Clark Patterson, which was put out for an RFP, and they were the low bidder on architectural multidiscipline professional services. So,
Matt?
We've been debating this for years. I think it's time to do this asbestos abatement. Just get it done so we can move forward. We need to do something. It's a shame that the building just sits there and we continually, year after year, talk about how we're going to get this asbestos out to move forward.
Before we have to
do it and continue through it to the end.
Before we do anything with it, we have to do a hazardous assessment. That's basically what we're doing. We want to tear it down, renovate it, etc. We're doing the hazardous assessment, which we had done in 2008. We're bringing it up to date. And then we've kicked around what possibly could be done with it. You've heard some of the things. Only has 8-foot ceilings. It's limited. So are we ever going to tear it down? We're trying to put it into the project of the court expansion, but when the $16 million price tag came through, we dropped that. We said we can't afford it. So it sits there fallow. We keep bringing up what are we going to do or what can we do, and this is resurrecting its whatever existence is again, and at least we can have a hazardous assessment and then discuss and possibly move forward if there's funding. Okay? All right, so we have a hand up. Chairman?
Chairman, just for John, just your department, I think that we're going to want to have the updated estimate at least in two ways. One, the cost of remediating and standing, and is there savings if we're part of a demolition program? You follow what I'm saying? Now, there's sometimes during a demolition program, some of the issues can go to a C&D landfill. You're required to suppress it with water. There may be a savings, or there may not. I'd like to see it either way, so that we know if we were to demolish a structure, for example, perhaps there'd be a significant remediation savings on the environmental side.
Gotcha.
Okay, any other discussion on the issue that we have a motion on the floor for? Hearing none, call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved.
Thank God. And the last thing I have, Mr. Chairman, is a court project update. Things are moving along, I think, great over there. The interior framing is probably 80% completed. HVAC is starting to be hung. I know they're sheetrocking on some of the firewalls, so it's going well. I think we're moving along really well. And I know a bunch of supervisors went on a tour the other day, and some of you missed it, so anytime you'd like to go through, it's best if we can do it in the afternoon, like 3:30, because the workers aren't in there as much. So, but anytime, if you just get a hold of me, we can set something up and take a walk through.
Thank you.
Okay. You got a couple of referrals. Did you want to address anything?
The first one, I think, is the asbestos. The first one is the asbestos in the jail kitchen. That's completed, and we decided not to renovate in there at this time. We're going to leave the guards in there for their locker room. On the opposite side of the hall, where public defender will go, legal aid will go, we're going to start on that next week. I talked to Joy yesterday, and I think that'll work fine for her. We'll end up putting one door into the hallway and making an entranceway for her clients, but
Okay.
she feels confident that it's a good space. And then the second one is the abatement report that we just talked about. So.
Okay. Privilege of the floor. Anyone from the Matt?
Mr. Chairman, in our Public Safety Committee, we talked about a county water line, or a water line to the fire for Brian's building there, and the training center. And it was said that DPW, why couldn't DPW dig that trench? I looked at an email for the request of that project, and it was a request for the engineering, or to do the RFP for that project, but it was never asked of DPW. I was unaware of any request for DPW forces to dig that line, and I didn't know if you wanted to discuss the possibility, since we have Jeff here, of doing that with county forces.
Jeff, you want to address that?
We did get a request back in January from Brian LaFleur. In fact, initially he wanted us to get Clark Patterson involved, and he wanted to engage in a contract with Clark Patterson or a similar engineer to do an RFP for him. We told him at that point that we think that we can in-house put an RFP together. So we assisted him on that. We put a bid out. Brian said he had a couple $100,000 available, but he only wants to spend up to $100,000 putting the water line in to the training center. The bids were just recently received, and the bids came in a little over $90,000, and then he asked if we could help him administer the contract, which we said, of course, we'll be there for key points. So that we actually did more than he originally requested, in that we developed the specs and bid it without any outside engineering. As far as us doing the excavation work, I do have forces available, and I can put somebody down there. We would likely need to rent an excavator because we are in construction season right now. But there's a few other issues, I think, that before the committee considers this, that I've got to get some more answers on. We would still need a contractor to install the iron pipe. It's ductile iron pipe. I don't have a water department in DPW, so we'd still be looking at contractor support for that. The current bid would have to be reconstructed and put out to bid again. The current bid does not allow us to divide out the excavation work and the pipe installation work. So we'd be basically starting over from where we started at this spring with a new bid, isolating just the pipe work, and then we would do the other work. There are some other complicating factors that, as of right now, the contractor, if we award the contract to the low bid, they're responsible for the trenching protection and the dewatering, which we think is significant in that area, because if you've been to the site, you know the driveway is basically skirted by a wetland the entire length of the driveway until you get really close to the fire training center. So we know dewatering and trench protection is going to be a major effort, and if we do it in-house, I would need to put some engineers on developing a dewatering plan, and we may in fact have to rent a trench box. We have a trench box that we use also, but ours is pretty large and it's used for major culvert pipes. I think a contractor that does waterline work or like this would have a narrower box that would be much more efficient, and so we'd probably be looking at renting a trench box and also renting pumps and coming up with a dewatering plan. So I wouldn't say it's not feasible, but there'd be some effort here that I'd have to come back to committee on if we want to delay the award of that contract.
Is that your intentions, Matt?
Is there potential savings to the county? Because that's actually the root of all of it, is how much. It doesn't matter who does it. What is the most efficient way to do this? And cost-wise.
Yeah, personally, I don't believe there's a lot of savings in us doing this type of work. It's not something that we do a lot of, and I think a contractor with the right equipment that they're used to using and the type of projects that they're used to doing is going to get it done a lot faster than we would. We probably, obviously my personnel would be paid at a much lower rate because we don't pay prevailing wage to our equipment operators, but I would have to back charge the project with those DPW costs because they're non-highway. But it might take we might be paying our guy half as much, but we might take twice as long to get it done. So at first glance, but I'd have to look at it further. At first glance, I don't believe there's a big savings in us doing it in-house, but I'm willing to look at it closer if we want to hold, and I can get more involved with the timeline and project schedule and what we think it's going to take.
Ron?
I think the town of Queensbury, we talked to them quite extensively. Brian and I went to a workshop. The problem was they were going to give us the ductile pipe, but because it's a separate taxing district for the water department, there was a question about who pays for that and should we pay for the pipe. So we said, rather than we skirted that issue, we just said, what can you do for us? And the water department said they would put the tap in, they would put the hydrant in at no cost to us. So there's some savings there that working with the town of Queensbury on that. But this is something that we were criticized for not finishing that fire training center and leaving a few of the containers that we had at the Ciba-Geigy site. So we're trying to expedite this thing and get it done. And here we are, $91,000 is up. And by the way, that isn't taxpayer. I mean, I shouldn't say it's not taxpayer. It's a grant that Brian received for this work. So it's in your hands.
Matt, you had a question?
I was just going to make a general inquiry as to, we still have to go through finance for what we discussed earlier in the day. Would it be feasible for you to come up with some estimates, some projection costs for finance before that final decision is made?
Sure.
Matt?
That was what I was going to ask. Thank you.
All right. Hey, the supervisor's all set. Privilege of the floor. Anyone have anything for the committee on buildings and grounds? With privilege of the floor. Go ahead, Doctor.
Hi, Jim Seeley, Director, Cornell Cooperative. I'd first like to thank the Facilities Committee for approving our roof repairs last Friday. That's going to be a great addition. Several months ago, I presented a plan to this committee because we received an Ag and Markets grant. And since that time, we've gotten approval from you for the greenhouse. We are waiting to hear from the placement of the pole barn, which is part of that grant. Last told we were waiting for the county engineers to talk about a setback from the wells, the town wells that are up there. So we haven't heard back from that yet, so.
Okay. Jeff?
Regarding any setback from the town wells, we'd be seeking input from the towns. And their engineers have been very engaged, and obviously that's part of the reason that the sewer project was advanced, was to eliminate the septic systems. So I'm sure that my engineers would have referred that on to Cedarwood, that's the town engineer for the town wells.
So that
So I'll check,
process is going
I'll check and see if we've got an answer or what that setback is, but
Okay.
well, that's not a decision that I would make or any of my engineers would make.
Okay.
You have a glamming report.
I don't. I had some concerns that I brought forth. Actually, my Extension Service Committee has heard
Can you
those.
give the committee your concerns? I know you talked to Supervisor Garrity,
Yes,
and he was...
and Mr. Garrity has given us a way to communicate. We had some difficulty communicating because the emails we had for them were not accurate. We got their phone number today. We actually have gone across the street to communicate, and with the county representative also. So we're going to address those, and hopefully...
How, have you had issues that are unresolvable?
Yeah. John is our fair person. Nothing that's not unresolvable, I believe.
Yeah.
Okay. And if you do have, could you please bring them to the, the supervisors? I know, was it Matt, that you attend the Cornell Cooperative meetings?
Yeah, I was
And
there last
recommend that
night.
doctor come and air any unusual circumstances or things he needed help with here?
There was some unique circumstances, but by the sounds of it, it sounds like they're going to try to address those. I know there was one concern that I had, that some individuals were sleeping in one of the buildings on site, but I'm not sure if that's to code, if that's allowed. But it was staff of the glamping crew. So.
Yep.
That rumor made its way to me. I think Matt notified me, and Tim Benway is my director of Parks and Recs. He's really your point person
Yeah.
for administering that glamping agreement. So he immediately addressed it, and they were out immediately. So no, that is not allowable, and so we addressed it. I would just add that if there are any concerns, I know Tim has reached out to you, John, and the last time there was a concern raised, I asked Tim to contact you, but you got to let us know if there's an issue. Tim again is the point person, and he's down there. He's down there a few times a week and sometimes every day, checking up on things. Obviously this is something very new for the fairgrounds. It's very new for the county. It's very new for Tim Benway to have to deal with, 30 or 40 tents on a fairground. So it's, but the communication is the key, and Tim Benway is the guy who's administering that agreement.
Okay. Good with that, Dr. Matt?
I'd just like to ask that, if you could add me to that as Parks and Rec Chair, so that I'm also
Yep.
on both ends of that. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you for your time.
Okay. You all set, Frank? Okay, in the interest of time, we'll move on to the airport agenda.
Okay, first item on the agenda is a miscellaneous resolution request to authorize the chairman to sign the updated DB program.
The committee's listening.
Okay. It's also number 5 on the referral pending items list. It was tabled from last month.
Okay, boss.
Where you going, Ron?
Huh?
You leaving?
You're the man now.
All right.
What do you got?
Well, we just got these two items, so you can three them.
There's a lot of discussion, so.
I'm listening. I got 2 here.
Everybody,
Start over?
I'll move that, but can you just explain what
Yeah,
that
we need-
changes to the data collection are? Just briefly.
There was some regulatory changes for data collection as part of the DBE program. Specifically, what that additional data collection is, it's a requirement for the contract, for contract requirements under our federal grants to collect additional DBE information. Specifically, exactly what that information is, it's contained in the DBE program, and that was included in the packet. Our consultants put that together for me. I don't know specifically what that additional information is that they need to collect, but I know that's the reason for the change. And it also included some updated participation goals based on our airport capital improvement program. How much money, federal money we're spending dictates what our participation goals are in the program for DBEs. Our new goal is 3.2% participation based on our federal spending.
Okay, so Claudia has a motion on the floor. We have a second on it by Matt. Any other questions, discussion? Rachel?
Can we just get the supporting documentation that, you know, it looks like section B talks about, and like you said, Ross, you weren't familiar necessarily with what they're asking because the consultant did it.
We did get a hard copy of that.
Yeah, the program, it's
hard
right
copy
here,
of
it's
the
a 164-page document. The meat of
I think we got a hard copy.
of this begins on page 43 of this document, and this is where you start getting into the calculations for the participation goals. You can see here the overall goal is 3.2%, of which it's 2.4% race conscious, 0.8% race neutral, and then they go into all the different specifics of these projects. As far as
I don't mean to get off. In the interest of time, this gets voted on at the full board, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, this will get passed on the full board, certainly.
Okay, so I'll do my
This is
homework
standard.
now.
It's a little, to be honest with you, I'm a little confused with the scope of it, or
it's a
disadvantaged
required
business
program.
enterprise.
Yep.
Is there, can you melt it down at Dan's level here?
This is how we comply with federal law.
Okay.
So, if we don't want to comply with federal law, then we don't need to do this. But I think it's probably in the best interest of the county to comply with federal law. And that's what's driving this. This isn't something Ross brainstorms. This is something that the feds are saying, hey, you want to participate in federal money and federal projects, then here's the new DBE program.
Okay. Sounds good. Very good. Jeffrey? Okay, any other discussion? Hearing none, call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved.
Okay, next item on the agenda is another miscellaneous resolution request. This is to establish a new paid parking area for the Balloon Festival and establish the parking fees for the field across Queensbury Avenue. The map is hard to see in your packet, it's black and white. Up here I have a color photograph of the area, satellite imagery. This is the new area that we've identified that would be suitable for vehicle parking during Balloon Festival. There's a gate in the airport's fence line across the road here, and there's a gravel driveway access that was created for the tree removal project when we acquired this property. So we have a direct access onto the airfield for this location, and what we'd like to do is establish a day parking area where we would charge vehicles, passenger vehicles, $5 a vehicle to park, and it's maybe $10 for oversized vehicles. And it's simple day parking. You get a ticket when you come in. We do some simple accounting with a ticket collection process, and that's all there is to it.
Questions? Mr. Chairman?
How large an area is this, Rob?
This is about 5.5 acres.
5.5 acres?
Yep.
And so you could, as a rough parking area with this, not straight, approximately how
No,
many?
yeah, it's turf. Yep.
So how many cars of parking have you got?
Well, I haven't developed an actual parking plan just yet. I'd like to work with engineering staff and some of my maintenance personnel to go out there and try and define exactly how we would set up the parking. We have gone out there, inspected the field, made sure that it was safe and usable for this purpose, and we feel comfortable that that is the case. But as far as the actual parking layout, I haven't designed one yet.
Okay, question.
Go ahead, Chairman.
And yourself, but at about say with circulation, 250 to 300 square feet per car, so you'd be talking a few hundred cars.
Yes.
I think so, yep.
Yeah, I would estimate we could fit 300 cars in there.
And if the weather's, if it rains,
if it rains, there may be some areas that we would have to not use for parking, in which case, if it's raining, we're not going to see as many visitors anyway.
Claudia,
I'll move this.
take it.
I'm
You're
gonna
you're moving
move
it, seconded by Ron.
I have a question.
Okay, we have two questions. Rachel
I'll
first?
defer to our county administrator
Okay.
first.
My question is about what arrangements we're going to make for them to cross over Queensbury Avenue.
Well, we have a crossing there. We have power out there to the location from an obstruction light. What we'd like to do is have a light there installed for safety for pedestrians crossing the road there, and we would have to, obviously, we would have to have staff there monitoring access for that area as well. I don't know, we'll certainly have to coordinate with the Sheriff's Department, let them know about the new crossing as well.
Jeff?
Yeah, and one of the things that we're already underway with is a more deliberate traffic control plan in that area. In the past, we've put cones on the center line to slow traffic down, but we're likely going to do a more robust event, special event type traffic control there, actually do a speed reduction and more robust package to make sure it's a safe crossing. Obviously, we do a lot of highway work, and so this is in our wheelhouse to develop something that'll be safe for pedestrians.
Rachel?
Is there any way that we could vote on this when we have the parking plan in front of us, maybe authorize to move forward, but next month have more information on this? And I have questions about the fees and where they're going and who determines those fees, and just some general questions. This resolution is asking that we establish a new parking area and fees for the Hot Air Balloon Festival, but as Ross just pointed out, we aren't at the point where we can even look at a parking plan.
What is the committee's, Claudia?
I'd be okay with that. I'd like to know what's happening, with the other parking lot where the hangars are going. Is that completely gone for this year?
No, we're still using that area. If construction begins on the corporate hangars, there will be a portion that won't be usable. For the moment, I've reduced the number of parking tickets that we're selling in that area from 500 to 300. However, we've only sold approximately 300 in the past. So I think we can easily accommodate the number of vehicles we've had historically, even with a reduction in size of that field.
Greg?
Two questions.
Has to be.
Any site work has to be done, and do you have in mind fee structure for this at this point in time?
I don't believe any site work has to be done. I think we'll want to put up some snow fence along the property owner to the north, just to keep people from walking across his property. And as far as the fees go, I would suggest, as what other private businesses do in the same area, $5 day parking fee, $5 to come in, and when you leave, if you come back, it's $5 again every time you come back. So it's $5 to come in, and if it's an oversized vehicle or a vehicle pulling a trailer, I would suggest a $10 fee for oversized vehicles or trailers.
Is there a motion yet on the table? There's a motion to table? I don't see any reason why we can't move on this. And
No, I made the motion
To move it.
And we just got no second.
I made the motion.
Is there a second?
You made the motion to approve the parking and the fees.
Right. And I seconded it.
And it's
I
seconded?
didn't, yeah, I didn't notify
Okay,
them.
we have a motion on the floor to approve the plan as presented.
Okay,
Okay, right
Yeah.
right at this moment. And we're having discussion. Okay.
good.
Rachel brought up a good point, the monies, and where they would go.
Yeah, those, the questions as far as who sets the rate, the board sets this rate, that's why we're coming through committee. Ross has recommended $5 for passenger vehicles, $10 for oversized vehicles. The money goes directly into the operating budget, offsets operating costs at the airport. So there's already revenue codes that are receiving parking fees. This is in addition to other revenues that Ross has developed over the years and improved our expense, our revenue side on the airport, on the balloon festival. So this is additional area, and this area on the east side of Queensbury Avenue has traditionally been used for that type of day parking. When Mr. Chartrand Mr. Chartrand still owns some property further up that he'll be doing day parking at as well. So this is in addition to our other revenue sources.
Rachel, you discussed it, what's
Well,
going on?
I'd be much more comfortable if we didn't set a fee schedule right now, and we could talk about that next month. A motorhome, I think is a very small amount of money. We're charging a motorhome, but we're charging our people coming from all over to see the Balloon Festival. $5 a card, $10 oversized, in and out, you gotta pay again. I think we might be getting a little greedy here, but, could we maybe pass it without the fees until next month?
To say that we're going to use it for
Yeah.
parking without the fees right now?
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with it.
Oh, in a motorhome, you
So-
got one price.
Yeah, but
Is this?
the Balloon Festival will be on us very shortly, so.
Right.
Right.
So you can still move forward, but couldn't we just, talk a little bit about the fees?
Craig?
Mr. Chairman, Ms. Seaver, do you have a recommendation?
Well, if I could have, just till August, I'm sure I'd be happy to bring it to the Airport Advisory Group. I'm sure they'd be happy to weigh in. But I believe there's other balloon festivals, and,
Claudia, go ahead.
Yeah, my motion didn't say anything specific about the fees, just that we would create this area and kind of move forward with that concept. So I think that we can wait till August to set the specific dollar amount.
Okay, you would have that amended into your... Say again, Jeff?
I would just say then we should just, we don't need another resolution to establish the area. What we need from the board is establishing the rate. That's really where the board authority is, so I would say if that's, we've got a lot of resolutions to go through Brian's office. I'm sure he doesn't need to write
That's
another
fine.
resolution.
All right, so I will withdraw my motion.
So we have...
Giving up this easy?
Huh?
Giving up that easy, huh?
I am. I'm giving up.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to set the fees at $5 per card, $10 for oversized. Let's get this done.
Okay,
I'll second.
so the motion has been withdrawn, it's been re-entered by Craig, seconded by Matt. Does anyone else want to discuss? Claudia's back.
Thank you. I would like it to be a day type fee, though. I don't want people to have to pay every time they come back in if it's the same day.
That's hard to do there. but-
Well, they're gonna get a little ticket, right?
The idea was, the thought process was that we would use tickets that have, dual tickets, with matching serial numbers. We could do a different color for each day. If you want to have one fee per day, you can do a different color, and if they have that color ticket, they can keep coming back in. It's not difficult to
That
manage.
solves it. That's good.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, call the question, all in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Yeah,
So
I'm good
moved.
with that one, Craig. FYI, didn't argue.
Thank you, Craig.
All
right.
Small potatoes.
Jesus, they ask questions I never would have thought of.
Okay.
Sheriff.
All right, moving on to referral and pending items. The first referral item is the discussion on the spreadsheet. I was requested to go through some of these, this detail on some of these spreadsheets. This first sheet in your packet, this is a summary sheet of all the different revenue centers for the FPO at the airport. So up here at the top, we have the totals for Jet A. These numbers here are in gallons. We got 2013, 14, 15, 16. These are just total number of gallons, and we'll get into some of that a little bit later and see some of the trends when we get into the next sheets. Avgas, similarly, we're in gallons. You can see the trend of total number of gallons sold in 2013, 14, 15, and 16. Rental, these are rental items for county buildings. So these are all county facilities and county buildings that rental is charged. That is passed through the FBO. This is gross revenue received by the FBO 2013, 14, 15, and 16. And again, you can see some of the trend here for the totals of these revenues at Revenue Center. And all services combined, these are the services that are more closely associated with providing a service to the jet aircraft that come onto the ramp. We have the ramp and landing fees combined. GPU, that acronym stands for Ground Power Unit. That's a diesel engine. You plug in the engine to give them auxiliary power on the ground. Lab is short for laboratory. That's servicing the aircraft bathrooms on some of the larger aircraft. Aircraft de-icing services during the winter time. Call-in, call-out fees, those are the overtime fees that the FBO charges if they come in outside of their normal business hours. Pilot supplies, self-explanatory, I believe. Oil sales, that's quarts of oil for the aircraft as they come in and need a quart of oil, and car rental commissions. So you can see each one of these is broken up in more detail on the next spreadsheet in your packet, the first full-size ledger sheet. Again, here's the specifics broken down by month for each year for the Jet A gallons. As you can see, the trend here for Jet A fuel sales, the total number of gallons pumped at the airport has been gradually increasing over the years, and the total for 2016 reported gallons was over 181,000. Here we get into the avgas, which is just aviation gasoline. It's a 100 low lead octane, high octane gasoline. Same thing here, we have our totals at the bottom, and you can see there was the trend. It went up a little bit, then it dropped back down, and it's been declining ever since about 2011.
Why?
That's a national trend. I did pull that up and take a look at some of the national trends for aviation gasoline, because I thought you might be interested. But you can see the trend nationally, U.S. aviation gasoline sales. You can see the trend has been down with that spike around 2011, 2012. So it is a national trend.
Why is it trending that way?
More jets?
Fewer smaller aircraft, I believe. I think there's fewer pilots entering the market, perhaps. There's any number of factors. It's very complex. I don't know the
Increase in pilots nationwide.
Yeah, there could be, efficiencies and newer aircraft as well.
Jeff?
I was just going to add that, as older airframes come off the out of serviceability and new aircraft are put in, obviously the technology is much different. So even if the number of aircraft were the same but somewhat newer, the usage in number of gallons would be declining as well. So I think the same trend when it comes to efficiencies in motors is happening on the automotive side as well.
Is there any chance that, we're not as competitive as we should be, so they're getting gas somewhere else?
That's always a possibility. When you look at, and I did include in the printout here in your packet down in towards the back, I did print out a sheet showing some of the fuel prices within the region. There's AirNav is a popular site for getting at your fuel prices in the region. This is by proximity to GFL, so I can jump to that.
That's all right. I just
Want to do that
didn't
now,
know if that was that's getting too detailed for here. This is referral.
Yeah, the information is there if you want to look at it.
Yeah, we're way past our.
Can I just ask a real question?
Go ahead.
Sure. What's SS and FS stand for? Sure. The SS is self-service. That's a self-service pump. FS is a full-service pump. Full service. That's mobile aircraft. AS. AS. Stumped it.
Where are you reading it?
Yeah, you stumped me on that one. AS.
That's on the...
KD. Yeah, William H. Morris State Airport in
That's
Bennington,
fine, but
Vermont.
SS is south and FS is full.
Claudia?
That gives us...
Yeah.
Okay.
I have to take off, but I did want to ask the committee and ask our department head here about the scoping document for the extension, and I would like to be able to see that document and go over the public comments before that thing becomes final. So obviously not today, but to bring that back to committee.
Yes, the comment period is ending this week. It may have even ended yesterday. Yesterday on the comment period for the scoping document for the draft environmental impact statement. I haven't had a chance to make any suggestions or changes to the scope, but when I have something prepared, it'll certainly come back through committee. I believe by seeker handbook, we have 30 days to go. Once we have the draft comment period ends, we have 30 days to put out a final. So I will definitely be coming back at the next committee meeting with a recommendation for a final scope.
But I would like to see the public comments too.
Yes, okay.
So even if
I
you just
will.
email those to the
I think
committee?
we've had 3 comments,
Okay,
or 3 commenters.
okay. Great, thank you.
Okay, you gotta go? All right, if we can run through the
All
referrals
right.
here.
So, yeah, let's, I'll finish up here.
Go ahead, Rachel?
Well, just as it relates to this, I mean, you're highlighting all the revenue. I'm just wondering where the expenses are. I mean, it's great to look at this, and unless I'm missing something.
That would be expenses incurred by the FBO in providing those services.
Right.
The county doesn't provide those services, so I don't have the details on what it costs to provide those services. And if you'd like, I can go into, some of the effort that's involved with providing those
No,
services and what it typically entails, but I don't have,
I just don't know why we're looking
Financial information.
at a potential revenue without the potential expense.
I think the chairman wants to address that.
Yeah, I think, Mr. Chairman, regardless of whether at this moment in time you think you're inclined to want to shift or attempt to move expenses into the FBO contract, thereby reducing county involvement, or whether your thinking is to acquire a greater percentage of the revenue and thereby lower our expenses, or somewhere in between. Regardless of that, and the RFP will afford us, I hope, at least it's been my desire, an analysis and an option either way. It's very important that you understand the revenue stream at the airport and what the taxpayer airport generates through its profit centers. Now, of course, there are expenses against this, whether you're a private person or whether you do it publicly. Of course, there are expenses. There's expensive gasoline, there's expensive personnel, but you need to fully understand right now that these revenue streams right now are generating approximately $1.3 million worth of gross revenue. Now, naturally, there are expenses against it. You got the cost of aviation fuel, you got the cost of the other fuel, you got the cost of manpower, etc. And so that's why I think these spreadsheets are very, very important to have. These will be followed on with a complete breakdown of all of the functionality of the airport. What needs to be done there to maintain the airport, what it means to have the ownership of the airport, or continuing ownership, and all the operating issues. I think that my sense is that some of the supervisors basically have approached me wanting a better understanding of the different revenue streams in the airport. Where are they? What's the history on them? Where we are at this moment in time. And this is very important because when you build more hangars, if you do that, whether we build them or a developer builds them, and there are more jets at the airport, one can assume perhaps that the jet fuel sales go up. Jet fuel sales go up, you can easily see what that means in terms of revenue. If we have hangars and we're leasing more space in the hangars, our revenue goes up and you're able to see what happens with that. And then later we'll be able to know exactly what to make a better determination later as to what kind of plan is best for the airport to move forward with, whether it's more public, more private, or a combination thereof. And you need to understand the revenue streams regardless. And I might add one other thing. I do not believe these are audited statements. Is that correct, Ross?
That's correct.
Okay, so these are not audited statements, but we're taking them on their face. These are largely gleaned or taken from the reports that we received from the FBO, which is required to provide. And just one other thing, just so everyone's very clear, this is specifically relating to FBO. It has nothing to do with developer projects, developer responsibilities, simply dealing with, pumping gas, parking planes, tie downs, leasing our space, all the things that are on the sheet there that you see that the FBO does. And and how we spend that $1.3 million going forward is going to drive, where we end up at the end of the day in terms of the RFP process. And just one other thing relative to that process, we're initiating that now because I want that process to be completed as soon as possible. But be aware that the existing FBO contract does not terminate until the end of 2018. So a new FBO operator will not take charge of that facility in terms of whatever FBO we do until January of 2019. So that's where we are right now in terms of the timeline. I asked that Brian and Ross and Wayne and Jeff and others at least better orient the supervisors to revenue streams at the airport, the operating responsibilities at the airport, in terms of the FBO.
Okay, I think it might be helpful if everyone, I think, has had a chance to look at the spreadsheets. I added in a sheet here on the very last page of your packet that kind of outlines some of the differences here that Chairman was referring to and the different revenue streams. To help augment the spreadsheet here, I put together this table that shows what a brief description of the different services, and then what the percentages that the county gets, what the FBO's gross revenue is reported, and what that translates into for county revenue under the current arrangement. Fuel sales, we have a county percentage of 7.5 cents per gallon. The FBO submits an annual report, and they're reported in 2016 of $926,000 in revenue. That translated into a little over $16,000 and almost $16,500 in county revenue based on 7.5 cents per gallon. The next revenue center is the hangars based on a year lease. Those are for the county-owned hangars. It does not include the maintenance hangar. Electricity costs are included, minor maintenance, and snow removal, 5-foot buffer around the hangars. That's what's involved for the FBO for managing one of the county's hangars. The percentage on the old T hangars is 3%. There's 12 units of them. And there's 50% on the newer hangars that were built in 2003. There's 6 of those units. The revenue reported was $72,000. And again, those are county buildings, and the county's revenue on that was over $13,000. Transient rentals, that's not really applicable to us because the transients are typically put into the Skimmerhorn Real Estate Holdings hangar, one of the jet hangars if they have space available, and that's not part of the FBO agreement or services. That service usually requires use of aircraft tugs, tow bars, tow heads. There is no percentage paid. There's a ground lease only, and there is revenue to the county via the ground lease. The FBO reported in their annual financial statement of $25,600. Then we get into the tie-downs. There's 2 different versions. You got your tie-downs who have a lease, and then you got your tie-downs who have transients. Most of that is self-parking. The FBO provides ropes and chocks for the aircraft to tie down. The Treasurer's Office is currently working through the percentage here. The lease says it's 10%. There's a little debate on whether it should be 10% or 3%. Regardless, the reported revenue was over $7,000 by the FBO, which translated to about $210. And these are pavement areas with anchors for the aircraft to tie down. These are all areas that are part of the county's snow removal and repair and maintenance program. Then we get into the ramp and jet parking. This is the main ramp in front of the terminal area, the big concrete apron. This is parking assistance, aircraft marshaling, the guys who go out on the ramp with the lights or the orange wands and provide direction for the pilots to park their aircraft. Luggage assistance, plane side, ground transportation assistance, again, wheel chocks, red carpet service. The percentage to the county for that service is 10% per the agreement. The FBO reported over $90,000 in revenue for that service, and 10% was just over $9,000 to the county. That's labeled as a combination of a ramp/landing fee. So that is, regardless of whether you separated the two or combined the two, it's a 10% share to the county. Lab service, again, that's a laboratory service. That's where you empty and fill the aircraft lavatory. There's a lab cart that's required, chemical water treatment, the blue sanitary pads for the lab service. Again, the Treasurer's Office is working with Rick Air on sorting out the percentage. It's a miscellaneous service, doesn't generate a lot of revenue, but it is something that the larger aircraft do expect you to be able to provide. If you need your lab service, you need a service, and although it's not a big revenue center, it's something that's important to be provided. Aircraft maintenance, that's out of the county's aircraft maintenance hangar. That's the facility where we have we have floor drains connected to oil water separators, to the sanitary sewer systems. There's a foam deluge fire suppression system in that building. There's radiant in-floor heating. shop room, storage rooms, bathrooms, it's office space. It's a fully capable aircraft maintenance facility. Currently, the arrangement does not include a percentage of or any rent specific to that building. It's all lumped together with the FBO agreement. The FBO reported in their annual statement of revenue of $137,000, and again, there's no revenue sharing arrangement on that building currently. GPU stands for ground power unit. That's a cart. Has a diesel engine on it typically, and a generator. It just provides auxiliary power for mostly for turbine-powered aircraft. Some of the smaller aircraft can use ground power units as well. But typically it's for some of the larger turbine-powered aircraft, and it's a service that the jet aircraft expect you to provide. Again, it's not a huge revenue center, but it's something that allows them to operate efficiently on your airport. They don't have to run their engines or their auxiliary power units and burn fuel while they're on the ground. You can provide that power to them so they can perform their flight checks and do the things that pilots do when preparing for a flight. There's plug-in heat. That's for some of your piston aircraft, block heaters, the same as you would do for one of your plow trucks. It's a block heater you plug in for the aircraft. We haven't seen any reported revenue on that. It is included on their pricing sheet. Piston preheat, it's a heater. It's like a large salamander with hoses. You can hook up and literally warm up an engine with warm air. It reduces some of the wear and tear on piston engines. Some aircraft prefer to have preheat in extreme cold weather conditions. De-icing, that's aircraft de-icing. There's two types of de-icing. There's type 1 and type 4 de-icing. Both the fluids are heated in a truck or a cart. The FBO does provide a large truck for de-icing services. A cart would be the minimum level that would be needed. Purchase of de-icing fluid, staff training, and maintenance of the truck and fuel to operate the equipment. There's currently a 10% revenue sharing agreement on de-icing services, and there hasn't been a lot of de-icing sales. Typically, larger aircraft, if a heated hangar is available, they will often prefer to go into a heated hangar rather than receive de-icing services. Heated hangar, you're getting into a warm, clean, dry aircraft versus being parked on the ramp and having de-icing fluid sprayed all over your ramp, all of your aircraft on the ramp, and then you're getting into a cold aircraft perhaps. So heated hangars are definitely preferred, and there's not a lot of price savings between the two.
Just a second, Ross. Chairman, you had something?
Yeah, I just want to point out, and we don't need to get into in-depth discussion. I'm certainly not the person to get it, but if you look at that one figure, for example, on the aircraft maintenance hangar, for example, that is, by any description, a very nice, expensive building. I don't want to put today's number on it, but it's got to be, could be $1 million. I don't know, maybe
More.
More. Okay. So you see that the revenue on that's $137,637. Well, by the time you heat that facility, and by the time you pay for the labor on that facility, that is at best an anemic number for a building like that. There are other things you could do with that building to generate a lot more net revenue than that. I suspect that's a money loser for the FBO. So, but then the question becomes, is that something that we absolutely have to have within the FBO contract? This is something for a future discussion. And if so, under what terms and conditions? Or are we better off seeing if there may be people that maybe want to be in that business but don't want to do the other FBO operations? I don't know. Or maybe we think about it a couple of different ways going forward. And that's why these numbers become very important. Because, at least based on my cursory review of that 137,637, that, somebody is charging $100, $150 an hour for aircraft maintenance. I assume it's something in that neighborhood at 2,000, 3,000 full-time hours is generating a whole lot more revenue than that. So it doesn't appear to me that there's a lot of aircraft maintenance going on, at least not full-time, being done in that building. And then the question becomes why? Is it something that, where are they going for their aircraft maintenance? Are they going elsewhere? Is it that it's not needed? I mean, these are the questions that we have to engage, because if you want to, because it goes to the heart of how you want to spend utilize your assets and how you want to spend that $1.3 million.
Go ahead, Russ.
Okay, oxygen, that's pressurized oxygen for high-altitude turbine-powered aircraft. There's specialized equipment needed to provide that service to those aircraft. The aircraft maintenance shop is capable of providing that. However, it's not a high-demand item. So you can see there's no sales reported for that year for 2016. Pull in, pull out, that's just a concierge type of service for the aircraft operators, aircraft tenants who have based aircraft in one of your hangars. It's an aircraft tug, some tow bars, some tow heads for pulling aircraft in and out of hangars. It's required for the larger jets. It's not really applicable to our county hangars because those aircraft are light enough and small enough that the pilot can push them in and out of their hangar themselves if they want to. It's not a big revenue center, but it's a nice amenity, a nice service that, and I'm glad that the FBO provides it. It's good to have that service. Wash area, there's no charge for wash area. We have a location identified where the aircraft can wash, but they're not allowed to use any soap or detergent due to stormwater controls and prevention. So it's either dry washing or no soap, just hosing aircraft down when washing them by hand. It wouldn't really be appropriate to charge for that. Call in, call out, again, this is the overtime charges. The normal business hours are from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., 7 days a week, and if they're charging $100 to $150 per hour with a 3-hour minimum or continuous shift. If it's at the end of their shift or before their shift, there's not a 3-hour minimum. If there is a 10% revenue sharing on that, the FBO reported almost $34,000, with the county share being $3,400. Miscellaneous pilot supplies, these are just things that a pilot would expect to have available to them if they flew in, if they needed a new chart or a new plotter, miscellaneous gadgets that a pilot may want to have and purchase and have available. Flight training students, they're going to need to gear up and purchase supplies, so that's some of that revenue. And you can see there was almost $9,500 in supplies. Could be some catering commissions as well, conferencing commissions included in there as well. Then we get into some of the non-revenue maintenance items. Those are the mow and landscape terminal areas that the FBO does. They do the janitorial in the terminal. County still provides the supplies. And then the FBO monthly lease. So it's a flat monthly lease for the FBO services, and this does lump in use of all the ramp space and the aircraft maintenance facility. It's $2,500 per month, and that's 100% goes to the county and amounts to $30,000 annual payment for the FBO agreement. So then you see the totals here at the bottom. So the FBO is services grossing about $1.3 million in revenue, and the county's share equals roughly $73,000. Their lease has a minimum annual guarantee of $70,000, so you can see they're exceeding that by about $3,000 in 2016.
Okay. Interest of time, can you move to your next item?
Yes. All right, so the next referral item on the agenda is the referral from the Airport Advisory Group regarding the parking plan, updated parking at the airport. I believe at the last Airport Advisory Group meeting, Steve had provided some information to Supervisor Sieber, and that they put that parking plan on hold until springtime. They've got a lot going on, so that item is on hold. Can we remove that from the referral items?
Yes, that okay, Rachel?
As long as it doesn't disappear forever.
No, you can bring it up and put it on, and when you get
Yeah.
closer to it, okay?
All right, the third item.
Some people might disappear forever, but...
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Just one point of clarification, that $73,000, that's our net revenue from airport operations, that's all we bring into the treasury?
No, that's just the revenue that we receive from the FBO. We do receive other land leases, revenue as well, parking, Balloon Festival revenue, We've got the hay contract, the hay lease revenue as well. So our annual revenues are quite a bit more than the 73,000. I forget the exact number we brought in last year.
But as far as being able to, providing all the tarmac, all the lighting, all the, access to the airport and buildings, it's basically 73,000.
Yeah, yep. Yeah, for all the revenue-producing facilities on the airport, yes.
Rachel?
Well, in the interest of Chairman Conover's comments about revenue and how, significant it is, perhaps next month we could see a chart like this for the other revenues that are county-based versus, let's take it a step further then, and then maybe after that, the next month, we can start talking about expenses.
Chairman?
I mean, the discussion today is about what we're presently contracting through a fixed base operator. At some point, we're going to get to a point where we will make a determination on what we wish to contract with under the next contract with a fixed base operator.
Right.
It may include items that exist within the existing contract. It may not include things that exist within the contract. The new contract, for example, may not include a diner. It may choose that provision within the existing contract is either no longer desired or no longer required or whatever. It may be within the new contract that there may... The other thing I just would like to put here, because the point of doing this and going through this exercise, and I would hope no one would get defensive at this point in time, is that when you're looking at these numbers, you need to understand that this is a snapshot of a particular revenue during a particular point in time, right? A particular point in time. If, for example, and I think this is the case, that the revenue has grown over the years, we could argue about whether we consider that significant or not. It has been the result of a business relationship between Warren County, the owner of the airport, and the fixed base operator, right? Because after all, that's where the tar meets the road in terms of fixed base operation. They're the boots on the ground. They're the ones, helping to make this happen. They may be our assets, that's true. The pumps, the gas pumps, the fuel pumps, just doing all of that. But somebody's operating that. Somebody's making sure that gas gets in the planes, that it's done safely, it's done well, that it becomes part of our revenue stream. So it's a very, I think, a healthy way, I think, of looking at this is the way I would put it. I think to understand what it is that we're looking at this moment in time, and with some projection, perhaps, on what we hope might exist in the future. And you can come to your own conclusions on whether you think it's been a good relationship or not a good relationship financially. But you need to understand that that's my point.
Rachel?
That's the point's well taken, Ron. I'm not disagreeing. I like this chart. I think it's fantastic. All I'm asking is that in the scope of looking and talking about maybe sometimes private or public, depending on who does a better job, who can do it better. We're privatizing a lot of things we've done in government before. Could we just maybe next month look at a chart of the county revenues? I know we have it in our budget, but this was really easy to read and understand, and I don't always think our county budget is.
I think that's reasonable.
I think what you're looking at is, I'm not sure what you mean by that, but if what you're talking about are revenues that we receive through land leases at the airport or some other revenue streams, they're apart from the FBO. The FBO
Right.
contract. The FBO contract is
I know.
specifically
Yeah.
where we choose to go to the private sector to provide us certain services. That's what we're talking about. If you could ask for no services, you could ask for 100% services. That's what we're talking about. Is what are we going to expect in terms of contractually from the private sector in terms of airport operations? That's what's in front of us, and between now and the end of 2019, hopefully the end of 2017, but before the end of, 2018, you know, we're going to need to get to wherever we're going to get to relative to this.
Yes, but that's not a problem providing that next meeting, Rachel.
Thank you,
All right.
Mr. Chairman. Perhaps
Okay.
I just wasn't clarifying correctly. I appreciate that.
Okay, third item is, for the referral and pending items, is for the proposal from Richard for construction of additional T-hangars. I did place a phone call to the New York State Aviation Bureau to find out if they had any updates on our grant application for T-hangars. Unfortunately, they haven't made any announcements, and the director was not in the office. I'm awaiting a return phone call. But there have been no awards as of yet. So I do not know what the committee would like to do with this pending item. Do you want to
Well, we're going to hear eventually, correct?
move it? Yeah, we'll eventually hear on the grant application, but this is for a proposal from Richard.
This is the proposal for him to do the hangars that we want to do.
That's right.
What is the committee's purview on that? I think it's a net revenue of like some $80,000, so I'm, with grants, I'm for the county seeking this and increasing our revenue sourcing. I think Rich is proper wanting it, but I think with the position we're in, we need the revenue. Rachel?
Well, how long do we wait until we find out about the grant? I mean, if it's gonna, I think we should keep it on the agenda, but also note that if we keep waiting month after month, I mean, we're missing revenue either way, so.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. Let's just leave it on there.
Okay, we'll leave it on there.
At least we'll get updated.
Sure. The fourth item is, I believe we addressed it at the last committee meeting to review the comments and response to comments from the FAA. I distributed those out to the committee with the changes. I'm just looking to see if we can remove this item from our pending list, our referral items.
Comments? Anybody got a problem with it being removed?
Why do we need to have it removed?
We went through it.
Well, Claudia has a question here that she left. Has the FAA provided any response to CNS or any county employee regarding the draft TA? So she wants that information.
I don't have any response from the FAA.
The FAA has provided you or CNS with no response.
They've had conversations with CNS, I believe, about
Okay,
the
so then,
response to comments.
so Supervisor Bramer would like any and all correspondence to any county employee regarding the draft TA. So who do we get that from? That's Ms. Bramer asking that information.
I can pull that information together. There won't be much to provide, but I will go through my correspondence and collect whatever I have.
Please provide that to the entire committee.
Okay. Are we removing this from this item from the
April 5th.
referral list?
Does anybody got any objections to this being removed?
Hazard determination for that.
Basically run its course, right?
Yes.
My
That's
take on it.
in there. Okay. All right.
And then we already addressed the last item on the referral pending items list. That was the tabled DBE program for the airport. Next item under information for discussion and review is Airport Advisory Group report and referrals.
Rachel?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We've had a very frustrating last two meetings for the Airport Advisory Group. We want to remind this committee that we do have a committee, an advisory group made up of experts to give technical advice to this group, and we certainly appreciate any referrals sent over to that group for consideration on anything that you're looking at. They did not have any specific referrals to ask this facilities group of this month. And I see that Travis Whitehead is here, and perhaps he'll touch on this if and when he speaks. But there was a lot of concern that with respect to Chairman Conover's timetable The advisory group feels a little differently, that we don't have as much time as it may appear, and that they had hoped to have a draft RFP to review and make advice and recommendations back to facilities. And perhaps Brian Rickenbach would like to give more of an update on the feedback that he got from the committee, but he took down probably a host of 7 or 8 items that we wanted conveyed to your working group. I don't know how often you're meeting, but I'm hopeful that Brian will copy me on an email that he sends over with those recommendations from the advisory group in the very near future. Would that be fair to do? But just to, again, express that they have so much knowledge and expertise to be able to give, and I think that dialogue is starting, but they really are concerned over not having that draft RFP that they had hoped to have in July, and would certainly appreciate it by August if possible.
Okay, I don't know, we did run into a little bit of a slowdown. Ed and Wayne, who were instrumental in gathering information, are ready to go on it, but they had a July 28th deadline with several grants that they're working on. And July 4th, I was directed by the chairman to get together to get back to committee so that we could move forward the information that they gathered. And after July 4th, I called them and they told me about the 28th deadline. I said, I understand that completely, but as of the 28th, I'll be getting a hold of you to get together to schedule a meeting specifically for that with the committee. So that was the only, it was just summer scheduling and those grants specifically. And Ed knows that everyone's kind of wanting to get their teeth sunk into this and move forward with it.
Well, thank you, and in the meantime, they did provide a lot of very constructive feedback
Yep.
that perhaps you can look at in your group.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ron?
The one thing that concerns me most about the RFP is the duration of what potentially a lease would be. There's some thoughts that I have that the original concept that Skimmerhorn put forth was for a 40-year lease. Well, you know, how long a lease do we want if we were going to go with an FPO and give the whole operation of the airport to someone else other than the county? How long would we go? And you know, we better be damn sure if it's going to be 10 years or 15 years that we've dotted all the I's and crossed all the T's so that we know that what we're getting or not getting. And that's what concerns me, and I think it's going to take some time to put that package together.
Ross, anything else?
Yes, I did receive a request from Rich Air for a reimbursement of discounted fuel sales at the airport. I don't have the authority to approve that. It does need committee approval in order to reimburse them. In the back of your packet, I added the invoice from Rich Air. They're requesting the county reimburse them for discounted fuel sales due to the self-service pump being inoperative at the airport. They had 3 customers. Those invoices are also added in your packet, who they offered discounts to due to the self-service being inoperative. The lease doesn't allow me to approve that. I'm presenting this information for the committee to consider. They were requesting $70.72 reimbursement.
You have a motion, okay, that by motion by Matt, seconded by Ron. Any discussion? Craig, go ahead.
Yeah, can you explain
Ross,
that
Ross,
one more time?
Craig's asking a question.
Sorry.
Ross, so there was, due to, we did not have facilities up and running for these, so there were lost
at the
sales?
conclusion of the upgrade to the aviation fuel farm, the new tanks at the farm, there's a self-service pump that was not upgraded as part of the project, so the old system was reused and connected to the new tanks. It has its own pumping system. We were unsure of what the cause was at the time. There was an assumption that it was related to the project. We've since found out through troubleshooting that it's unrelated to the project. Perhaps we're still trying to get to the bottom of it. We've got a specialized contractor, Northeast Petroleum, assisting us with the troubleshooting. And I know Steve had got some additional information just yesterday. He's hoping to do some more exploratory work into it. But long story short, the self-service pump wasn't in service. Customer tried to come in and use it. They weren't able to use it. I suspect they were upset about that, and FBO offered them a discount on their fuel sales as a result. What that discount entails, it's difficult for me to ascertain from what they submitted. because the list price that they're showing here doesn't match up with the list price that they advertised on AirNav, so I'm not sure if that was a discount off of their posted airfield price or if it was a discount on some other pricing, but I wasn't sure.
I think
Regardless.
one of the things that we're trying to find out is if you go to self-service, it's $1 a gallon. If somebody has to pump, it's $2 a gallon.
Yeah, there's a different fee structure for self-service versus full service. And
Okay,
this is
so-
self-service, it's usually less than full service, which is how they had to.
So how
provide
do they
fuel.
figure a discount? I mean, what did they give as a discount? That's what, I guess,
It was a 22-cent per gallon discount, well, no, I'm sorry. What was that discount?
Well, the fact is, gallons were sold, correct? And we get 7.5 cents a gallon, correct? So now we're being asked to forego that 7.5%, or we're asked to do it 20% less on 7.5 cents a gallon?
Now, the 7.5 cents is fuel flowage fee, it's unrelated to this, so they'll still get the 7.5 cents on this. This is separate and distinct request from that.
I think what he's asking about is, we get 20 gallons. We made
Do we need to vote on that, Mr. Chairman?
$1.40 is what we made on 20 gallon sale.
okay.
Right.
And they want,
Rachel?
I just wonder, can we hear from Rich Air about what the circumstances are as well, because they're the ones asking for this reimbursement?
No, it was only merely because the self-serve has been down since the new fuel farm was being constructed, and NOTAM was supposed to be issued to notify pilots that the self-serve was down. Upon discovery of pilots coming into us saying that they had no notification, it's basically legal means of communicating to pilots what is and what isn't operating at certain airports around the country. So we were obligated to tell them that, okay, we're obligated to give them that price because it wasn't noted out there as a concern for pilots. And we had requested it be noted continuously until it was brought into operation. So that's the backstory behind that. We were forced to discount the fuel price because the self-serve was not noted out of service.
Who's supposed to notify?
Yes, the county.
We failed, okay.
Why didn't we sorry.
Rachel?
Why didn't we notify? Why didn't we do that notification?
Why didn't we notify?
Why didn't we do that notification if it's required?
I didn't get the NOTAM issued before the aircraft came in. They had submitted a request. I don't remember the exact date it was, but I didn't submit it until you sent me a reminder after the fact.
So it sounds like that lies on the county. I would make a motion, we pay these bills.
I think we
Oh,
had, do we have?
did
We have a motion.
We have a motion, we're on this
Oh, I'm sorry.
And
discussion.
I would be in
we're
favor
just
of
getting
paying
a
the bills then.
clarification.
Yeah.
Vote.
Okay, take the, call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved.
That's all I have.
Okay, privilege of the floor. Travis?
Travis Boyd at Queensberry. Thank you. First off, I'd like to address, Mr. Beatty just questioned Mr. Dewberry and was asking about comments from the FAA. And Ross indicated that he doesn't have a whole heck of a lot. Most of that communication is going back and forth directly between CNS engineers and the FAA, apparently. He's nodding. The problem I have with that is that, I mean, that's fine. You know, we went ahead and hired CNS to do this work that evidently we feel we need to hire them for, but that doesn't mean that the people sitting here at this table should be not know what's going on between what the FAA is saying. So whether the FAA is talking to Ross or whether the FAA is talking to one of the people that we hired, I think these people here, at the very least, on the committee, should be privy to that information if they ask for it. So I would hope that that would be considered when you consider the request of Claudia and Doug on that. The other thing I'd like to bring to your attention is on the very last page of the handout. You know, you see the FBO revenues, gas $926,000. County ended up making $16,000 out of that. It goes on, $72,013. It's indicative that it doesn't seem to be a fair balance here in who's getting the money. And I think that just goes to show how bad the existing contract is. And that's really why my concern that if we do delay to the point, which is what happened, exactly what happened 4 years ago, when we were talking about making changes to the contract, then we found out that, oh, shucks, we, don't have enough time to do this because, it's 6 months before the end of it, and we're going to have to say yes or no, and, so off we go. Well, whether it's 6 months in the contract now or whether it's just not stated, which is evidently the case, it's just not stated, you're going to have to go ahead and figure out who's going to run that airport, not just the day before this thing expires, but, probably 6 months beforehand. So we do not have a year and a half. We have probably at most a year to get this all decided, and we definitely don't want this contract that we have now. I think everybody can agree on that. It's not very fair. So I think that, Mr. Skimmerhorn has offered a more fair contract, and I hope that we will give him the opportunity to bid on that, and so that's why I am making such a point of that. But the other thing that you can see on that very last page of the handout that you've got there is that the county percentage is being questioned on several items. Should it be 3%? Should it be 10%? Please, we're 8 years into this contract, and now you're wondering whether it should be 3% or 10%? I mean, give me a break, okay? I direct you to the first large page of the handout, and I make some observations here. You can look at the avgas gallons, the 100 low lead, look at the total gallons over the years, and you can see that it's declining. That's what's happening to the little piston planes. You can go ahead and look at the jet gallons and not only see that it's far larger gallons, but it's actually increasing. And you might want to question, why is that? Because, geez, I heard if you go ahead and extend the runway by 1,000 feet, maybe you'd get more jets in here. But, geez, it seems like it's already happening, and I wonder why that is. And nobody here said, let's go ahead and invest in some hangars, but you had a rather smart businessman that said, geez, if I went ahead and put my own money into some hangars, I can probably make some money, I can get some more revenues, and I think he's looking at that going forward and saying, hey, look, I can do the whole job better for you, just get out of my way and let me do it, and I'll guarantee that you're going to be losing $450,000 less than you are now. Well, that looks like a pretty good bird in the hand to grab, rather than talking about, well, maybe we could do better about making some more money on gas and this kind of stuff. Well, maybe you could, but you haven't, and I don't think that I would put my money on that horse. So, those are basically what I'd have to say about, what these things mean to me, and thank you for the time.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mark?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was hoping to be doing this an hour ago.
Me too.
But I would say to all of you, you've done a very good job today, and you've done your due diligence on this. I thought the spreadsheet was excellent. I would have liked to have seen it 6 months ago. We should have had this discussion 6 months ago, but we have it today, so we've got some numbers in front of us. I agree with Supervisor Montesi. We need to be careful with this RFP. I think that's what this group has been doing over the last 6 months, being very careful with it, and they've been working on it. And I hope to Rachel Sieber's point that they get an RFP in the next few weeks, because you don't have till the end of 2018. You have until June of 2017, 2018, I mean, to get this done. So you've got a year. You've got basically a year to get this done before the provision kicks in with Rich Air. If you want a parking plan, I'll have it to you by the end of the day. That's an easy one. Okay? And I won't even charge you for it. Just FYI. And a few other things. The fuel sales, the jet sales, they're going way up. So be careful as you go through this process not to kill the goose that laid the golden egg.
Travis hit it right on the head as to why they are going up. Ask yourself, who's driving those sales? And if you are now looking at the revenues and want to bring that in-house, ask yourself, can you drive those sales going forward? And again, runway expansion doesn't seem that it's that necessary to drive those sales. What it takes is a good, solid businessman who's smart enough to build some first-class hangars and then go out and recruit some new jets that are just fine and landing there safely. Profits are up, $257,000. Wow, that's a good thing. That's why Rich Air is saying we can invest those profits back into the airport and cut the costs to the county. It's a great proposal. Maintenance issue. The chairman brings up a maintenance issue. We have everybody in the room and no one says a thing. A perfect opportunity to just address it now. We have Rich Air here. We have the airport manager here. What's the deal with the maintenance issue? Comes up, total silence. I mean, perfect opportunity to address an issue that is holding up, it sounds like, the RFP. Let's get it figured out. It's not that hard of an issue. Get the FBO together with Ross, sit down, and let's identify what the issue is and get it to these guys so they can write the RFP. It's not that hard of an issue. Already adjust the timing. I think the other thing the FBO needs to do is come in with the investments. I was on the board 3-4 years ago, and we passed quickly the extension to the FBO agreement, and I was told that at that point, Rich Gilmohan had invested over $1 million into this airport out of his own money. Let's not forget that. Let's not forget the capital improvements that he has made to the airport. Let's get an update on that as we're looking at this analysis. Regarding the FAA comments, let's see what they are. I was on this committee. Mr. Chairman, 2013, I raised a lot of questions and issues. Last week I was forwarded by an individual, John Caffrey, who had foiled information in his search for information on what the FAA and DEC was saying to the county at that time. I was a member of this committee. I'd never seen those documents before. I went through and I reviewed the 2013 meeting notes, and it never came up. I've got a packet right here, 200 pages. I read them. I got up at 3 a.m. in the morning. I read through 200 pages. All information that substantiated a lot of the concerns that I had as a supervisor at that time. Were not given to me as a supervisor. To my knowledge, was not given to the committee. I don't know what supervisors were in on it, but I can tell you I wasn't. And it would have substantiated a lot of the concerns that I had at that time. So I would ask you going forward, release the information to this committee, to the board. Let them see what the good is, what the bad is, and keep them informed. That's what I hope you do with Claudia. I've got that documentation. I'm going to be releasing it in a newsletter soon, so you can read it there. Thank you.
Anyone else have anything come before the committee? Doug?
Yeah, I've got a couple comments. I too read from Mr. Caffey the information, and I find it very, very disturbing that there's been some information from the FAA and the DEC where the vast majority of supervisors have not seen that information. And as I said last week at the board meeting, I believe if you've seen the information from the FAA, the questioning of our need, the questioning of this and that, I conclude that there'd be a lot of other supervisors who say, hey, this doesn't make sense, this extension. The FAA has been saying that all along, but we as a group never see that. Why is that? Why don't we ever see the negatives from the DEC? Why don't we ever see the negatives from the FAA? And I get a little perturbed that we got private citizens have to dig and dig and dig, and supervisors aren't giving the information. That lack of transparency appalls me, and it ticks me off. I'm going to be very upfront with you. That we have to, where we're supposed to be getting the information, we have to find out and dig to find out we're being withheld information. So, you know, when Supervisor Westcott gets up or Mr. Whitehead or some other people get up and show a little frustration, it's because the lack of transparency. And I'm not sure who it is, but I can tell you this, 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago, I asked our county attorney, Paul Dusick, I want to be on every correspondence with the airport extension, from the FAA, with CNS engineers, with Ross, with all our employees. You know what happened? Got goose egg. Didn't get any. Paul Dusick said, well, Mr. Supervisor Brady, that's going to be too tough to do. Instead of figuring out how to do it, which is his darn job, he said, it's too tough to do. We can't give you that information. And so this is where we are today. 3 years later, we find out the FAA hasn't been supportive of this. We find out the DEC has serious concerns, and yet we're just finding it out today. So, this is BS in my opinion, and this lack of transparency in this good old boy system has got to stop. It's got to stop now, and it's got to stop going forward. And so, when I asked Ross for some information right away, he said, well, I don't have anything. Yeah, but CNS does. CNS works for us. We've given them over $2 million. Step up, do your job, get the information to all the supervisors, because we have to make decisions based on information, not based on lack of information. So, sorry for the ranting and raving, but that's how I feel about this.
It's a very emotional plea.
Thank you.
Matt?
Could I have the information, whatever this documentation? I mean, Mark's got it.
I'll send you an
I don't
email.
really want to wait for his newsletter
I'll send you an
to
email.
read it. Could you
I think
share it with us?
Mr. Lehman would like the information. You've had it. Why
I'd love to read it.
Why doesn't Mr. Lehman have the information?
I just got it today, actually.
Oh,
You got it? You got it before I did.
Rachel?
Could someone tell me what the information said?
Yeah,
Because I guess I'm wondering if it's saying the DEC isn't supportive, the FAA isn't supportive, could Ross or Jeff, could somebody tell the committee what is this information? What's it say?
I don't think we know either.
I think we'd love to see the information.
We'd
as well.
love to see what they're
I
talking
can
about.
tell you.
spoiled it, and he'd be glad to share it now. So he has spoiled it. He's received it from the county, and obviously the FAA is very concerned about the need that we presented and some other concerns. So, yeah, it's public information.
Can you forward it though?
I'd
Today,
be glad to
please?
forward it to you.
Okay,
So the
thank you.
county,
Glad to read it.
So that's everybody on the committee.
Just a second. Rachel has the floor.
oh, well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So to be clear then, Jeff or Ross, you guys have never seen this information.
I don't know what information you're referring to. If I saw it, I could tell you whether we've seen it or not and give you my interpretation of it.
I hate to even ask this question, but I'm going to ask the Post-Star. Don, have you had a chance to read it?
A little bit.
You want to tell us what it says?
Well, 200 pages.
Buy the paper.
Who is it from and who is it to?
This is Mr. Caffrey. Yeah, Travis. If I can explain it, I will.
Travis, you have the floor.
No, Mr. Caffrey went ahead and foiled a bunch of information, and he passed a good, probably all of it, I don't know, on to me. And I asked his permission as courtesy whether I could pass it on to others. And he says, it's public information, do anything you want with it. So I have sent it to a number of supervisors, and I actually tried to send it to everybody, but I found out that link of all supervisors or whatever bounced back to me, so it didn't all get back to everybody. But in particular, what Mr. Westcott was talking about were some 2013 documents that were really between the FAA and CNS engineers going back and forth over comments on an earlier draft environmental assessment. And a couple of the statements in there that the FAA made is, we feel that the need is weak. So, and then more recently there's comments from the DEC questioning whether or not you've got to look at totally avoiding things and not just jump into mitigating things, and that they were going to again, I will, rather than explain any more, I will make sure that I send all of you this information later on this afternoon.
Rachel?
Is this I'm looking at one document, is this a redacted version, or we have one that's not redacted?
You know, the county attorney could probably explain it, but we have a redacted version. Some of it was, you know, there were whole pages that were just black. And, you know, let me speak about that just a little bit. The law is clear that, and I don't want to, you know, try to, please interrupt me, Mr. County Attorney, but the law is clear that intra-agency discussions should be allowed to happen without the public, you know, poking their nose into it, because, you know, you don't want to go ahead and limit that kind of discussion. And because of that, I think some of that stuff is redacted. And, you know, but what I would say is that it should not be redacted from you guys. So, I mean, that's what would concern me. If you guys didn't know this stuff, I mean, you should probably consult with the county attorney and say, hey, I shouldn't probably pass this on to Travis, and who's going to pass it on to Don, and who's going to that's probably not a good idea. You're right. And I've never asked people to do that. But all we have is the redacted versions. You should probably be able to get the entire thing, I would think. I don't know why you wouldn't be able.
Ron?
So I guess what I'm asking is that this was a report from the FAA to our consultant CNS, not to you guys. So if there's a lack of CNS telling us that they got something from FAA, that's a problem.
Yeah, that's a major problem.
Frankly, I really hate commenting on this because I haven't seen these documents that you're talking about. But I do know that throughout the process, the FAA has been very sensitive to the development of the EA. They've been critical in a good way, called critical thinking, where you are the skeptic and you do say things like, hey, you didn't address this in your report, you didn't sufficiently address this. There's been a lot of improvement in the report. But I can tell you, I've never heard the FAA say to me or Ross, or never seen anything where they said this project doesn't have merits. What they have said is, you need to explain this better. You need to include weather data. You need to include updated FlightAware data. And they've consistently come back to us and said, you need to add this in the report. You didn't address these things. And it has come back to the drawing table multiple times to the CNS. And they've informed us on occasion that, yep, they want us to do this. We're going to add in, you know, I think there was weather data added in. There was updated FlightAware data added in. But
so that line of communication is open with you, FAA, and CNS.
Yeah, but you know, in the end, the FAA has the current draft environmental assessment. They are either going to say the project has merits or not here soon. And so any comments where they suggested anything was weak was only in the effort to improving the document and address other issues that they felt should be included in the document. But never once did they or the DEC say, hey, this project's going nowhere, it doesn't have the justification. So I think certain people will read more into comments like that than actually exist. In the end, the FAA is going to say yes or no here soon. They're going to say they're going to find no significant impact, or they're going to say that this project is too much for this airport or does not merit advance, and that decision is going to come here soon.
Doug, can you give our closing statement?
Yeah, I'll give you the final closing statement. Would you say it has merit or not? When the FAA questions, how come you didn't give enough information on this, you didn't get enough information on this, where's the need? You know, even though we as the lead agency provided the need, and then they say, well, that's really not the need, or not, you need to expand on that. You know, that's information I think the supervisor should have had during this whole process, yet we never got that. Because a lot of supervisors, they are under the impression, well, the FAA wants us to have that. That was the first thing. And they never said, go ahead and do it. They said, we'll support it if you guys think it's right. But they never said to do it, so that was a false. So not getting information and questions like this from the FAA and the DEC along this process really makes us fly blind, no pun intended. You know, so that's the problem I have. the lack of information. So my closing statement as the next senator from the state of New York is it lunchtime?
Missed it. All right, could I have a motion to adjourn? Matt?
moved.
Rachel, second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Enjoy.